and we're just getting started. Okay, let's begin. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Jewish Women Influencers present Real Talk, Personal Redemption. And the point of what we do at Jewish Women Influencers, which is a group of women in Crown Heights that work under the rules of Neshei Chabad, and it's for everybody, Jewish Women Influencers. Our mission is to provide a platform for real influencers, for Torah true influencers, to be able to give guidance and support to the women who are seeking it. And I appreciate so much our panelists who are joining us on our mission and are coming out here. I know how much time you put into this panel to prepare for it, and how, like I said, you go out of your comfort zones each time to be vulnerable, to get on the stage, to say your story, and to shed guidance and inspiration. And it means so much to us, because without the speakers, without the panelists, we couldn't do anything. So thank you so much for joining us. And thank you all the women for coming out to hear them. So the first thing, like we said, we're going to talk about is Yud Gimel Tammuz, the Frierdiker Rebbe's Chag Geula. And when we chose our theme, personal redemption, as I was reading the stories of the Frierdiker Rebbe, this theme kept coming back up, of the Rebbe demonstrating painstakingly, at great expense to himself, that it's all about personal redemption, that no one can force, coerce, or control a Jew, no person in no situation, because a Jew is free, he's royal, and he's infinite. And throughout the story of the Rebbe's brutal incarceration in the Spalerka prison, in Spalerno prison, he went out of his way to show that he will not bend. And one time, when he commenced a hunger strike because they took away his tefillin, and he was groaning as they were taking him, to the interrogation, he heard the two guards talking, and they were saying, well, in a day or two it'll be done, because he's going to be finished off with, God forbid. And the Frierdiker Rebbe, he said inside he got such a fright, but he asked Hashem, please strengthen me, that they should see no fear and no anxiety on my part. And it's just incredible how the Frierdiker Rebbe seems to be giving us, this is my take on it personally, seems to be giving us this koyach of what you're all going to be speaking about today, our panelists, that nobody and no situation can control us. We are free inside, inherently. We are free, and we can live our optimal life. And that's why I think that women are so excited to hear you guys tonight, because it's very attractive when somebody is living in that place of peace, light, and joy. I mean, you're living Baruch Hashem, Geula, and we want to get there together with your help. So, with everyone's permission here, my name is Zohar Sasson. I'm honored to be your hostess. And I'd like to start with our first speaker, Sterna Shlucha, and author of Your Awesome Self, Mrs. Sterna Ginsburg.
Hi. Hi, Zohar.
Let me see. Wait. Let me find you, Sterna.
Here.
Let me find you. Wait.
Right
Raise
here.
your hand. Hold on. Hello, Sterna. Thank you so much for being here. And Sterna, reading the title of your book, it's just so awesome. It's such a great title. It gives me so much energy and just a feeling of self-worth, pride. And, I'm wondering to myself, Sterna, as I'm thinking these great thoughts about myself by just looking at the cover of your book before I even opened it up, is there contradiction with feeling good about yourself? And, like what we always learn about, not to be, arrogant, narcissistic, gaivadik. I mean, how can you have self-pride and not get to those negative traits? That's my first question for you.
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought we were going to first start with an introduction about the topic in general.
Okay.
But this is a great way to jump right in.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be part of your really, truly amazing, wonderful work. So thank you very much. It's really, I'm humbled to be here with you tonight.
Mine and many others. It's a group here. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, but you're definitely the captain of this ship. So
thank you.
Yes. And I know that. So from being on the ship, coming along for the ride. So you're asking again, how does this feeling good about yourself not lead to arrogance?
That's right. That's right.
So there's a very big difference between feeling good about yourself and arrogance, because arrogance means I am better than someone else. Arrogance comes from ego. Arrogance is from ego, and ego is the invented version of ourselves when we're not in touch with our true self, which is our neshama. When our good feeling comes from our ego, then of course it's arrogant, because we need to be better than others in order to feel good about ourselves. But when our feeling of goodness and wholesomeness and beauty, and I'm going to say magnificence, infinity,
Wow.
when that comes from our neshama, and it's a work, you know, before when you were introducing us panelists, and I don't speak for them, I am sure that they will agree with me, having met them a little bit and gotten to know them a little bit in the process of preparation. I don't think that any of us see ourselves as having arrived. We're just fellow travelers climbing alongside everybody else. And definitely, Baruch Hashem, it's a blessing to have tasted and small tastes of Geula, but we're all still struggling with our gullus and reaching for the Geula in deeper ways, in bigger ways, in new ways, on new fronts. So
I hear you. But I have a question.
but the goodness that you feel from your neshama does not make you arrogant. It just makes you feel good in a way that's equal, because everybody also has a neshama.
Okay.
So you're not better than them.
So what you're saying is, if you feel good because you're tapping into your neshama, so it's not arrogance. You just feel good that you have something good about you, something inherently good about yourself.
Absolutely. And, you know, people think that there's something holy about feeling yourself like a shmata. In a mimer that I learned, and I believe this is in one of the mimarim in Chassidus V'Eretz of Tefillah, one of the mimarim says, the Alter Rebbe says, the 4 worst words, the most destructive, spiritually damaging words a person could ever possibly say is mi ani uma ani. Who am I and what am I worth?
Wow.
So there's nothing holy about, you know, looking down at ourselves as nothing, because if I am nothing, then of what value is my behavior? In order for us to realize the tremendous impact that each of us has, we need to own the beauty, the power that Hashem gives us.
But then that makes me think, well, isn't there a dark side to me? You're talking about tapping into my neshama side of me, but isn't there a dark, selfish, nefesh habahamis side of me? I mean, do we just ignore that part of me and just say it's not there? You know what I mean?
Well, we don't want to ignore it, because we want to embrace the entirety of who we are, and we can only deal with it by acknowledging that it's there. And that's why Perek Aleph Tanya, maybe that's why Perek Aleph Tanya talks about, you know, we have all this stuff going on inside of us. Klipa and Sitra Achra, all the midas ra'is, the midas that obscure our greatness, are right there in Perek Aleph and Tanya, because awareness is the beginning of all change. Without awareness, we cannot change. At the same time, if I show you a ring that has a diamond on it, and I ask you, what is it called? What are you going to say? You're not going to say, oh, it's a gold ring that has a diamond on it. You're going to say it's a diamond ring. Even if we take that gold ring and we put a diamond on it, it changes it. It's no longer a ring that has a diamond. Why? It's a diamond ring because the value of the diamond is so much bigger than the value of the gold, that it changes the nature of the gold. And so too, we are not just human beings who happen to also have a neshama. We are carriers of Hashem's light who also have a human dimension. Who also struggle with darkness, who also struggle with gullus. We are the leaders, as Jewish women especially. We are walking into Geula. We're the front line, leading the whole Jewish people towards the Geula, towards Mashiach. Does that mean we have no gullus that we have to let go of and walk away from? Of course we do. So does that?
You know, it's something. It's so nice how you explain that. So basically, what you're saying is, we have to keep remembering that the main part of us is our neshama. And that's what we have a lot to feel good about. Like you said, we're carrying Hashem's light in us. Okay, we have a darker, not good side, but that we're going to bring him along. That's not the real me. That's not the main thing about me. If I have a neshama, it kind of takes over. It takes center stage of who, our identity. Identify with our neshama and feel a good kind of pride.
Yeah.
Is that
and
correct?
That doesn't mean we don't identify as humans. It doesn't mean we don't identify as people who struggle. It's not like when I have a struggle, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way. No, I happen to have a Nefesh Bahamas. Hashem made me feel this way. Hashem made me struggle with darkness, with insecurity, with doubt, with anxiety, with jealousy, with laziness, with all the stuff that all of us struggle with in different ways at different times, right? So it doesn't mean we don't, oh, that's not me. I'm not supposed to feel that way. I'm supposed to feel that way because that's how I am. And at the same time, I also have the power to invite Hashem into the picture, into the story, and let Hashem's truth and the truth of my neshama make a difference so that in my behavior, I show up in a geula way with the, expressing the power and the beauty of my neshama. So I'll struggle in all different kinds of ways, but the goal is to be able to show up to every experience and every interaction and every day with dignity, courage, and compassion. That's the signature of our neshama, our true self.
Wow. So what you're saying is your humanness is that you struggle on the inside, but when it comes to actual behavior, you let the neshama choose the behavior. It sounds like almost like what the Frierdiker Rebbe was saying, that he was so frightened, but he would never show it to them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but it's a little bit more than that, because the humanness is actually the space where Hashem wants us to bring Mashiach. It's like the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya that an Eved Hashem, the difference in an Eved Hashem and an Oved Hashem, if you don't have a struggle, you cannot serve Hashem. In other words, if you don't have the darkness, you can't turn on the light. The whole point, and the Frierdiker Rebbe talks about this at length, the whole point of a Nisayon is Lama'an Das, to know, to come to a place of knowing. People translate, I forgot the beginning of the pasuk, it's slipping my mind right now, but if anybody knows it, jump in. That Hashem challenges us, Lama'an Das, and some people translate this, Hashem challenges us that he should know, but the Alter Rebbe asks, and all the Rabbeim have expounded on this, and the Frierdiker Rebbe also, that what do you mean Hashem knows? What do you mean Hashem is testing us to know our loyalty, to know our commitment, to know our attachment to him? Hashem knows it. So why does he need to test us? And the truth is that it's so that we should know, so that another layer of our consciousness should be transformed into a space that knows Hashem, so that we could bring the Geula. So every moment of struggle, every challenge that we overcome, every moment of darkness that we walk through and show up despite the darkness in a state of light, like I said, with dignity, with courage, with compassion, with strength, right? When we do that, we are inviting Geula into our hearts and into the world at large. So if we wouldn't have the struggle, we wouldn't have that opportunity to bring Geula into this world.
So you're saying overcoming a challenge is Geula.
Is bringing Geula.
Is bringing the Geula to ourselves and to the world.
On a personal level, that's personal redemption, and for the whole world. Yeah.
You're reminding me something now. I went to the aisle, I think it was last year, Gimel Tammuz, and as I'm walking in, the Rebbe is talking directly at the screen. So I stopped to look, obviously, always. And the Rebbe is saying, each one who has a personal redemption brings the global redemption. So it's almost like it's not only helping ourselves when we're at that good place that we want to be. It's each one all together will make the global one.
Yeah. And the goal is not that good place. There was a mashpia in Eretz Yisrael, I forgot his name, but he made fun of this, that the goal is, sometimes you see these courses advertised, peace, serenity, tranquility. That was never the goal. The goal is to bring Mashiach. The goal is not about reaching a level of peace. Obviously, we get to Geula through peace, but the goal is not peace. The Mashpia in Eretz Yisrael made fun. He said, when your goal is sipuk is satisfaction. It's like you go sipuk, when your goal is sipuk, you plots, because that's not what we're here for. We're here in the world to work, to bring Mashiach, and that's our goal. And definitely, we experience a whole different level of peace along the way. But if the goal is peace, then every time we face a challenge, that challenge becomes an obstacle to the goodness that we want. Instead,
so let me ask you, just to bring it down practically. I remember now what you were saying, that we were going to do the introduction, right?
Yes.
About why you wrote the book. Is that what you're talking about? About how the book got off got off the ground? Was that what you were
Or
talking?
just a thought on personal redemption, like what was my, wasn't
You
I thought that was the beginning.
Okay, no problem. Because Jenny, when you're talking now about people have struggles, insecurities, right? So when
Yeah.
I started reading your book, the introduction, I was really blown away, shocked. Why? Because here you were describing yourself, right? A 16-year-old girl on a roller coaster, right? That's how you introduce
Yeah.
your book, your journey, right? And you said you felt like you were always constantly on a roller coaster. Somebody said something nice to you, or you did a good job, you were on a high. Then, somebody didn't appreciate you, you were on a low. And I thought to myself, my gosh, if Sterna Ginsburg, the star, felt like you were always a star, if you felt like that, what are the rest of us going to say? And then you were able to find a place where nobody and no situation has an effect on your inner peace by touching into your inherent goodness, your soul. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how you came to write this book, right? You saw so many people struggling with the same anxiety, right?
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
just not at peace with themselves and with their life. They couldn't enjoy their life.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I have another question for you, and this is amazing. You base your book on the 12 Pesukim, which is incredible. And you call it 12 steps to energize living, right? And the second one you elaborate on, Shema Yisrael. And one of the fascinating things that you write over there, every line in that book is just so good. But you write over here, there's something called the paradox of faith. And I'm quoting. We can say, yes, of course Hashem is in charge of the world. He's the source of everything in my life. But the reason I'm so upset right now has nothing to do with Hashem. She messed me up. He caused me heartache. She ruined our shidduch. So if Hashem is in charge, can other people hurt you? Can other people are other people responsible for their actions to you? If Hashem is running the world, can people take control of what they do to you? Responsibility?
So every person, that's a really good question. So every person is responsible for their behaviors, always. There's nothing that releases anybody of the burden of responsibility, of accountability for our behaviors. But everybody's behavior and everybody's accounting happens between that person and Hashem, between each of us and Hashem. So from my perspective, in other words, from each of ours perspective, look at the Frierdiker Rebbe. It's a very, very fascinating story. I mean, the fact that the Frierdiker Rebbe, I'm trying to think which story to say. The Frierdiker Rebbe, there was in 1945 there was a Farbrengen, and the Frierdiker Rebbe's health was very weak. He was very unhealthy the last 10 years of his life as a result of the torturous beatings that he got in the prison. And so they allowed only a limited number of people into the Farbrengen. And at one point in the Farbrengen, somebody shouted, to stop pushing because du quetscht dem Rebbe. You're pushing, you're squeezing, you're crushing the Rebbe. And the Rebbe, Frierdiker Rebbe, right away said, a Yid quetscht mir nicht. A Yid never crushes me. And the Rebbe said, even in Shpalerka, the Yid didn't crush me. The Yid had mir nicht gequetscht. Now, it was a Yid who beat the Rebbe up viciously, ferociously attacking him. So what did the Rebbe mean? The Yid in the person didn't do it. But that is a story that, I'm sorry, that is not directly answering your question. But the person is responsible for their behavior. But the Rebbe, how come the Rebbe is able to say that? The Rebbe had no anger towards this individual who hurt him so badly. How is the Rebbe able to even say that? It's because from the Rebbe's perspective, this whole challenge was a situation between him and Hashem. And obviously we are not the Rebbe, and we can never do what the Rebbe did. And yet the reason why we know about it, and the reason why our Rebbe Farbrengt about it so many times in so many different ways, is to give us strength. and to remind us that our story, our adversity is between us and Hashem, and it's a challenge that we can overcome. So yeah, other people are responsible for their choices, and if somebody hurts me, they are accountable to Hashem. But between me and Hashem, it's I have to know that my story is happening to me from Hashem, and there's a purpose that Hashem knows is in my best interest.
And that person, that's his issue. If he was the one to
Oh,
bring
yeah.
the badness, God forbid. Okay, it should be only good for us. Now,
Oh, yeah,
I'm
it's like
wondering.
Yosef HaTzadik, just in
Right.
one nutshell. Like Yosef HaTzadik, when Yaakov Avinu was nifter, he passed away. The brothers came to Yosef and said, "Now you're going to get back at us."
Right.
And Yosef said, "It wasn't you. Ki lemichya
Right.
shlachani elikim. You didn't send me here. Hashem did."
Right.
It
right.
was. So that's
Okay. Okay. And I'm wondering, Shterni, I'm noticing a lot of people putting a lot of attention now to the 12 Pesukim. And it's just interesting to me. I mean, we said it as kids. We always thought it was like child's play in a way. And now we got this WhatsApp during COVID about Fruma Belanov, a miracle story that she was so ill and she kept saying the Pesukim over and over. And Tanya Balpeh, and she felt that the Pesukim helped her and she was publicizing it. And the Rebbe came to her in a dream twice with a glowing
Wow.
face. Yeah,
Wow.
encouraging her to tell everyone to say the 12 Pesukim. Is any thoughts on this? Like why the 12 Pesukim are suddenly back on center stage?
Wow. This is just it's just I didn't hear that story that you shared about what that from Belanov shared. So that's amazing. There are so many stories where the Rebbe actually said that the Pesukim have tremendous power, that they really do. So we are close. As we get closer to Geula, we're doing everything. I mean, it's amazing. If you look around, it's not just that we're doing the 12 Pesukim more. We are doing so much more. I mean, look at the Mitzvah Mezuzah, Mitzvah Tefillin on a whole new level, like never before. The amount of goodness that is going on in the world is the work that the Shluchim are doing, that every single person is doing, is unbelievable. So it's no surprise that also the Pesukim were doing better. When the Rebbe introduced the Pesukim, the Rebbe said it was for children. If every child know this, it was for lahashbis oyev umas nakem, to get rid of the enemy in a complete way, to really fight that Yetzer Hara. So we need the Pesukim more than ever. Every child needs these messages, and the child within us needs it. And if we have it, we can give it to our children with that much strength and clarity.
Thank you so much. And I think that whenever the kids are a little anxious about something, or, I think it's a good idea. We'll just tell them, say the Pesukim, even when I'm anxious or something, I'll just say the Pesukim. And I noticed in 770, before the women's shir on Shabbos, the women now say the Pesukim.
Wow.
Together. Yeah, it's
Wow.
amazing. But so Shterni, I see there are a couple questions coming in. I'm just going to ask the audience, if you have any questions about what Shterni said, please put it in the chat box. And in Mirz Hashem, after all the speakers, we're going to go through the questions as much as we can. If not, you'll reach out to the speakers directly, but we'll try to get to everyone's questions. I see a couple good questions here. I just want to say, so Shterni, thank you so much. I see that the takeaway really is what you're saying is we have to get in touch and identify with who we really are, with the light of Hashem that's in us. That's the true us. Everything else is kind of on the side, and we can be at peace and bring Mashiach that way. We can have a personal redemption that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. So we're just gonna go to our next panelist. For the meantime, we're gonna welcome Shlucha Rachi Pinson, an author of The Rising Life and Rising, the Book of Chala. Let me just find Rachi here. Here you are. Hello, Rachi. Thank you so much for being here, Rachi. And I know you as a born teacher, and I know you've been teaching Chalas for 20 years, and it's something that you're passionate about. How did writing a cookbook, a Chala cookbook, come about? I'm curious to know how this all started.
Well, hi, Zohar, and hi, everybody. This is very exciting. And I just was thinking, how the Rebbe always encouraged the use of technology for Kedusha. My Zaidi did the Tanya on the radio, and it was like a new thing. And everyone was like, the radio, doing Tanya on the radio, but the Rebbe encouraged it so much. And I think that seeing this Farbrengen now on Zoom is so special. Wow. It's incredible that we're bringing Kedusha to these mediums that have a lot of power in Sitra Achra, and we're balancing the power. Baruch Hashem, we're giving a lot of kedusha.
It feels like a Farbrengen. You said it. It feels
really
like a real
does.
Hasidic Farbrengen.
It really does, and I'm very, very honored to be a part of it. And I think your question is really funny, because I usually get the exact opposite question. Because you happen to know me, you know that I teach Kalas, but because I do it on our shluchos, I don't teach from Kalas. I teach mostly secular Kalas. Most people don't even know that I'm passionate about that. And when they hear me speaking about it, they're like, wait, how did the challah lady come to be teaching tikva? So I usually get the opposite question. So I like your question. And because really mikvah and marriage is a tremendous passion of mine. So how did I come to write a challah cookbook? It's a good question. It's a very specific cookbook, and it's a very specific book about challah. So, I started baking challah in an emergency, pretty much. I grew up not baking challah, not knowing I grew up on shluchos in Vancouver, British Columbia. So we have a lot of Canadians here, right? But there was nothing kosher. My mother had to make everything from scratch. And the only thing she never made was challah, because she was terrified of making challah, because she tried it once when she was first married. Her shviger, my bubby, was involved, and it didn't work out well. And my father still says to this day that the challah was so bad that they put it on the fire escape, thinking the birds would come, and even the birds wouldn't eat it. So she was a little traumatized from her experience with challah baking, and Hashem was very, very kind to her. And even though we had nothing kosher, nothing, I mean, when I grew up, 45 years ago in Vancouver, there was we didn't even have the COR, so you had to go over the border to get, ketchup and peanut butter. So wow. She really had to make everything from scratch. And luckily for her, we always had a bakery. We always had a kosher bakery. So, wow. So I grew up not really experiencing, homemade challah. And then when my husband and I were newlyweds, we went out to Kobe, Japan for Merkez Shluchos, for Tishrei. So they didn't have a rabbi then, and we went to be the shluchim for the community for Tishrei. And when I got there, I was informed that I was going to be making challah for the whole community for
oh my gosh.
Tishrei. So yeah, it was a challenge, and I don't back down from a challenge. So I went in it full force. Wow. And I made that challah, and I just got hooked, because I just felt like it was something so meaningful to me, the way serving people challah and the reaction that people would have from homemade challah, and the way it felt like I was giving something of myself to these people. Oh, wow. So it really that's what got me started making challah. And when I came back and started, life and having children and moving out on shluchos eventually, I baked challah every single week. And when women, when people used to come to us Friday nights, I found that challah was something that women would light up from. Wow. Wow. Homemade challah was how do you do that? It was just such a wonder to people. I know to us growing up, we take it for granted, but these women were so out of touch with their womanly abilities, with their ability to nurture. I started giving challah class. I was like, come to my house Thursday, I'll teach you. I started doing workshops, and this was long before the mega challah bakes were a thing. And I found that the women who would not come for anything else, they wouldn't come for Yom Kippur, they wouldn't come for anything, they would come to make challah. Challah was created this opening. There was this desire in these women to reclaim something that was lost to them. Feminism did a real number on women, and they thought they have to be like men. So here they are, so powerful in their, in the office, and then they go home and they're powerless. And they had no power in their relationships. These women were just floundering, they were drowning. And then they would come and learn about this mitzvah that we have, and this ability that we have to nurture and to feed and to sustain people, not just their bodies, but also their neshamas. And they would just light up from it. So really,
Rachi, I must tell you, I must tell you, in preparation for our panel, I was reading some of these articles about how, the women were just like lighting up from giving their family their homemade bread. So I made challah this week. I must tell you. And my kids were like, what? But the looks around the table when they were dipping the challah into the dips, it was priceless. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And I'm making this every week for them. It was a different Shabbos. So thank you.
It really is. It transforms the home. And I've had such amazing feedback. I've traveled to shluchos from around the world and done challah bakes everywhere. And the feedback is incredible. Like, women start keeping Shabbos. Whole families change just beginning with challah.
Wow.
So I really call challah the gateway mitzvah. It's like, I feel like once you introduce people to this idea and the house there's this idea of preparing for Shabbos, the house starts smelling like Shabbos.
Wow.
I got messages from people. So, I called my husband and told him that he has to come home from work early because there's challah. So once there's challah, he should really make the prayer on the wine. So then we started doing it every week. And now my children ask for, and it just like, it really snowballs. But it begins with the woman, discovering this power that she has to create a home of Kedusha.
Now, let me ask you, Rachi. So that's incredible. You're really getting us all, interested in buying your cookbook. Not only getting your recipe, but all the
this is just an infomercial, really. I just
right. No, seriously. But so, how do you feel? I understand now how challah baking can empower the woman to be that nurturer for her family. How do you feel that mikvah, the mitzvah mikvah, and b'chol, marriage, also empowers women?
I mean, a marriage of mikvah is really the key.
Right, marriage with mikvah, right.
Yeah, a marriage with mikvah. So really, it's funny because challah baking, like I had to get into, but like the mitzvah of mikvah, and it's funny because we were discussing, Zohar, about speaking about the mikvah, and you were like, speaking about the mikvah. It's like, but the funny thing is that for me, I never had an issue speaking about it. I think, first of all, I was raised on shluchos. My mother ran the mikvah in Vancouver always. And of course she was the de facto, mikvah lady. And so I grew up, mikvah was just like such a part of our lives. People used to call our house and ask for my mother, and I would tell them, oh, she's at the mikvah. Like, not ever realizing, as a child that was not something I should say. But I grew up with mikvah just being such a natural part, seeing my mother sitting on the couch, teaching women about mikvah, and just, it was such a natural, beautiful part of what I felt that we were giving other people, that I never felt any hesitation. And you should know, once a year I take a group of women to the mikvah Erev Yom Kippur. And it's really like the way that I introduce women who would otherwise not come to learn about mikvah. This way, it's like in a very non-threatening situation. Nobody really has to prepare. It's like, a very easy, and in that class, when I'm speaking about Yom Kippur and mikvah, of course, I bring in the idea of mikvah and marriage. And, last year, when I brought the group to the most gorgeous mikvah, to Mikvah Mei Menachem, which is, I think the women just go there, they want to use the mikvah just because they want an opportunity to go there. It's so incredible.
Which mikvah? Which mikvah is this?
Mikvah Mei Menachem on
Where is
Troy
that?
and Lefferts.
Chana Rapkins? The Rapkins?
No,
mikvah?
no. Moshe Pinson's mikvah.
Oh, okay. Mikvah Chayamushka.
Nei Chayamushka. Sorry. What did I say?
Chayamushka.
What did I say?
I think he said Mei Menachem.
Oh my goodness, no. Nei Chayamushka.
That's the camp.
Okay. Whatever. Foggy brain. We're all ladies.
Okay, no problem.
Get it. Okay.
Yeah.
So so when I brought
There's so many gorgeous mikvahs now. It's incredible.
It is. Baruch Hashem. And I can't even explain to you, being a person who takes secular women to the mikvah, it's when they see the mikvah, it changes everything. And after I spoke to these women and I brought them to the mikvah, one of the women was actually a woman who I taught as a kala, is so excited, loves mikvah so much, she brought along a neighbor of hers to this class so she would be introduced to mikvah. And this woman who was married like some 15, 16 years already, when we got to the mikvah, after speaking about it, she burst into tears.
Wow.
I got worried. I thought maybe like something offended and I asked her what was wrong. And she said she feels so cheated She says, you know, I'm married 16 years. How come nobody ever told me
Oh,
that this is a possibility? I feel like as
wow.
a Jewish woman, like we have such a gift. How did I not know about this? How was I not told? I told her, because you didn't come to my house. We didn't talk. Nobody told you.
They didn't
But
come to Chalabek.
it's incredible just for anyone who ever hesitated to talk about mikvah. And you should just know it's such a gift. It's such a beautiful gift that we have to offer that the Eibishter gave us. And by holding it back, we're denying the gift. But really, you know.
Can I just jump in for a second here? Sorry,
Yeah,
I know.
please.
So I know it's not my turn, but I just wanted to
No,
mention
it's always
that,
our turn.
that going to, if somebody hasn't been going to the mikvah on a regular basis and then she decides to go to the mikvah, it actually works retroactively.
Yes.
And the Eibishter considers it as if she has been going to the mikvah always.
Yes.
It's something important to point out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's
it also
beautiful.
speaks to the power of mikvah, the power of tshuva, and mikvah as being an agent of change and hope. Mikvah, like the word tikva, right? The idea of going into the mikvah is the idea that we can change, we can grow, we can shift, that we can transform ourselves, we can transform our reality. And that's the beauty of the mikvah. That's the power of the mikvah. But really,
You know, Rachi, I want to also say that you're saying about how that woman felt cheated. You know, why didn't anyone ever tell me? And I just want to say, like you mentioned before, I always felt like hesitant to ever talk about Taras Mishpacha to anybody. I didn't feel like I'm a shlucha or anything, or it's not my place. But I remember when my own relative kind of went off the derech, and all of a sudden, you know, she went from being like a Beis Yaakov girl to becoming like, to looking like when she was a girl, and then she got married, and then she wasn't from. And it hurt me so much when I saw her like that, because I know it wasn't her. I knew she wasn't happy. She used to be so smiley, and then she became like more like a bitter person. So I went to Israel and I was visiting with her. And then before I left, I said, you know what? Who knows if I'm ever going to see her again? I'm just going to say it. And I told her, you know, Hila, I want to tell you something. Just do one thing for your kids. She was in her 9th month pregnant. And I told her, I'm telling you, just do it for your kids. Just do Taras Mishpacha. It's going to help your kids. They're going to be resilient and strong, you know, physically, mentally, emotionally. Just do it for them if you don't do anything else. And she looked at me like thunder, like a bolt of lightning just hit her, you know. And she was like, she thought I was going to tell her off. She thought I was going to tell her, I don't know, keep Shabbos or kosher. I told her, just do this for your kids, for nobody else. And you know what happened after that? She called the shlucha, and the shlucha said, we're going to make the meetings in your home every week. And she started learning Taras Mishpacha. Her whole life turned around, and she became now,
Wow.
from Lubavitch, she became the assistant principal in the Chabad school last year.
That's an amazing story. And just because you opened your mouth and you said something.
Incredible. Incredible.
We have so much power. We have so much power. That's fabulous. So for real, like it's to me, mikvah, just seeing, you know, we live in a very liberal pocket where we're on shluchas. It's a very, very ultra liberal. I don't know, the word liberation is a good word, so I don't want to abuse it but you know, we all know what I mean. And in this neighborhood, you know, marriage is so denigrated, it's so degraded, and it's so painful for me to see how women struggle. First, just to find somebody, then to get them to commit to them, and finally to like be in a marriage and to stay happily married. It's, you know, it's actually incredible to me that the marriage industry, like the wedding industry in the secular world, makes so much money. You gotta give people credit. How much hope they spend so much on these weddings, and the chances of the marriage surviving in the secular world is like maybe 40%. And in my neighborhood where I live, it's definitely less than that, unfortunately, from what I've seen. So, you know, these women put so much effort into the wedding. When they come to me, that first class, and I say to them, you know, all the money and the effort that you're putting into this wedding right here, right now, this is the most important thing that you're going to be able to do for your marriage. Everything about the wedding day is over after the wedding day. What we're doing right now is for your future. It's like the insurance policy for your marriage.
The Taras Mishpacha, the learning.
Taras Mishpacha. It's like, and it's not only about staying married, it's about staying happily married. It's a Bayis Neman has to be built on something that is eternal. It has to be built on something that's bigger than us. Like, you know, like the Rebbe always wrote in the letters to the Chassanim and Kalas that we still read today and are still completely applicable, that the only a marriage, a Bais Neman, is built al Yisodei Torah v'Mitzvah. It's like, this is how it's built. It's built on something that is true and eternal, and that builds something that is true and eternal. So for me also, mikvah as one of the 3 mitzvahs of the women, I feel like it really speaks to us, who we are at our essence as women. The idea that we can, and this also relates to this idea of personal redemption, of finding our own inner geula. The idea that as women, we have this capacity for shift, for change, to constantly rebirth ourselves, to renew, to nurture ourselves and mother ourselves into a whole new being. And that is like, when we embrace this mitzvah, we really allow ourselves to reach our fullest potential as an individual, as a wife, as a member of the community. We really allow ourselves to shine when we embrace this part of ourselves, this ability for hischatshus, for constant renewal. And, you know, I love that you're calling this, you know, Jewish influencers. When you were introducing and you were saying, I was thinking, you know, we think, you know, men are, we always say the man is the mashpia, is the influencer, right? And the woman is the makabel. The woman is the receiver, which is not a passive receiving, but it sounds like it is, right? But then when you look at when the Eibishter created the first person, Zachar v'Nekeva bara Isam, right? Created Zachar and Nekeva, and B'Tselem Elokim bara Isam, in the image of Elokim. And it's not the image of the Yud Ke Vav Ke, it's the image of Elokim. Elokim is the Eibishter as we experience him as the influencer, as the mashpia in this world, as the creator. And this is the Tselem Elokim. Zachar and Nekeva are both the Tselem Elokim, which means we are naturally influencers. And the Rebbe was so, you know, I got a letter from the Rebbe for my bas mitzvah, as anybody who grew up Lubavitch did. But growing up far away on Shluchos, when I got that letter, I actually thought that the Rebbe wrote a special letter for me. Now I know that he did. But then I thought I was the only one who got that particular letter. And it made such a tremendous impression on me when the Rebbe told me that I should be an influence on the girls around me. And
Wow.
of course, I was the only frum girl in my class.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, the Rebbe really understands what I'm going through. And he understands, and for him to tell me that I had the power to influence those around me, that even as a little girl, that I could be an influence just by being a Bas Chabad. And those words always stayed with me, even after I found out that all the girls my age got the same letter. I knew that the Rebbe was speaking to me personally. And it really resonated
Beautiful.
with me and stayed with me in my life. We are, all of us, a mashpia. We all of us have this potential to give of ourselves. And in order to do that, we have to know our power. We have to recognize our power as women. And this is, you know, the mistake of feminism.
So Rachi, let
we
me,
have to be
yeah.
men.
Right. And I have a question. So, and this was really what your book is about, right? The rising life. You compare women and chala, that we have to be above, and you kind of make it sound, I know in all your talks, that women have the ability to bring up our men folk in our life, whether it's our fathers, our brothers. We can go up and we can raise them up. Is there a precedence for this, that women are the ones that schlepped everybody else along to the geula?
100%. 100%. Yeah, I called my book Rising because
Right.
really I felt like, and yes, if you eat enough challah, you will rise too. Sorry, had to put that in there. I wrote a cookbook and ate a lot of challahs.
But you didn't rise.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully we rise in all the good ways.
Right.
You know, my husband is not a tall man, but my mother-in-law always used to say he's tall in the right way. I always daven that he should be tall in the right way, and that's, you know, we have to grow in the right way. But the idea of rising, really, this idea that, and just as Sterna said, this idea that when we touch the part of ourselves that's, you know, where we're reaching the part of ourselves that is true, that is the neshama, that is the essence of who we are. And when we're in touch with that and we live with that, we rise. We rise to our fullest potential. And the idea that when we rise, everyone around us rises. When we are living in a place that we are risen, that we are living our true self and living our full potential, automatically we lift up everyone around us. This month of Tammuz is like, we think of it as like a painful month,
Right.
The Sunday is already Shiva B'Tammuz. We start the process of destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, and this, like, we start this idea of mourning, but the Rebbe spoke about this idea that Yud Beis Tammuz, Yud Gimel and Yud Beis Tammuz is so powerful that it lifts up the whole month of Tammuz, and we call this entire month Chodesh HaGeula. Even though this is the month that we experience destruction, because Yud Beis Tammuz happened and the effects of it reverberate through generations, this whole entire month became elevated into a month of Geula. So, it happened, the original Tafresh Pezai, but today, in this day and age, we call this the Chodesh HaGeula.
Yeah, I wanted to say that, we didn't say it before, but the Frierdiker Rebbe, two famous quotes from Yud Beis Gimel Tammuz is Loirak Oisi Bilvad Gala Kadosh Baruch Hu B'Yud Beis Tammuz, right? It's not
taking
just
words
me.
out of my mouth. Yes,
That's right. It's all of us. All of us on this day can tap into our inner redemption. It's a day of Geula for each person. And also, when the Rebbe was, I just wanted to say how beautiful in the way the Rebbe said it. When the Rebbe was, his death sentence was commuted. Baruch Hashem, he was sentenced to death. The Frierdiker Rebbe for spreading Torah in Russia, and it's an amazing story. I just want to throw in this woman. There was this formidable, fascinating woman who was the head of the Russian Red Cross. Her name was Madame Peshkova, Madame Ekaterina Peshkova. And the Rashag and the Rebbe and all the Hasidim, they went to her for help, and she was like a guardian angel. And first she helped to commute the death sentence. Then, like the Rebbe says, his file was open on the desk, and he saw a line through, death sentence, and it said 10 years harsh labor in Siberia. And then next to that, niet, no. And then 3 years in Kostroma, 3 years, in some far-flung place. And everybody told the Rebbe and the Rashag, don't push for appealing that. Just take the plea bargain and be happy. And they thought about it, and they said no. The family said no, we are going to appeal it. They went back to this Madame Peshkova. She was Maxim Gorky's first wife, famous Russian author, friend of Stalin. She was his first wife, and she went back to. They went back to her, and she appealed Kostroma, the 3 years. And as we know, 10 days later, the Rebbe's, freed miraculously on his birthday. So I just wanted to bring in that when the Rebbe was on his way to Kostroma from Leningrad, from Shpalerka, the Rebbe said, this, however, all the nations of the world must know. Only our bodies were sent into exile and subjugated to alien rule. Our souls were not given over into captivity and foreign rule. No one can impose his belief upon us, nor coerce us to conduct ourselves contrary to our beliefs. And when you're talking about us being free, and no situation and no person can control a Jew, this is very exciting. That hopefully we should all tap into this, our real freedom to break free of anyone or anything that's holding us back and limiting us from, like you said, touching our inner core.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So should we announce that if anyone has questions, they should put it in the chat box? Or is there anything else we want to end with, Rachi, before we go to Esther?
I just want to speak about the idea that it's actually the woman who, and you asked me, is there something as women? Right. And I think that's important that we're speaking now to women and to understand what is our personal unique koyach as a woman, what's our strength in reaching personal redemption. We look at the Frierdiker Rebbe, we look at these holy people and we say, like, well, okay, they had the tools. What do we have? And I think that that's such an important thing that we need to speak about because, people have situations surrounding them that they don't have control over. We don't control the circumstances of our lives. So how do we achieve a personal redemption? And what does this do for the world? So first of all, we know many times we're told, B'schus Nashim Tzidkanias, right? That because of the women that we were released from Mitzrayim. We came, our original exodus, our original redemption happened because of the women. And it's not just the schus of the women. It's not because the women were wonderful, so they deserved it. The women were actually the catalyst for the redemption. It was because of the power of the woman. The woman was able to see past the darkness. We look at Miriam, right? Miriam is like Mar to Ram, bitterness to elevated. She had this ability to turn, to see from the darkness, to see the light. She was able to perceive the possibility of a future, even when the men had despaired. The women were so powerful in Mitzrayim, their mirrors that they used to entice their husbands, that they used to show them the reflection of what the future could look like. And these mirrors were so precious to the Eibishter, so precious that they were used to purify the hands of the Kahanim. They were used for the Kir. This was the beauty,
beautiful.
Being able to see this possibility of Tara when you're in this place of Tumah. This is why the woman is the one who goes to the mikvah. At our very core, our rechem, when you turn it around, the womb, when you turn around the word, is the word machar. The idea that at our essence, we see a hope for a future. We have the possibility, the creativity to see something beyond the immediate. And even when those around us despair and get stuck in a bad situation or something that appears to be negative or a challenge that's too hard, we use our powers of creativity, our powers to see into the future past the immediate. And with
Is that the woman's job?
Yes.
Is that what makes the woman special, that she can encourage those who have despaired to see a better day, that to give hope to those around her, to give hope for a better tomorrow?
I think the
Is
fact
that our
we can
schus?
see it, I think if we can live that, then it automatically elevates everyone around us. When we're living in that place, then everyone around us is lifted. So it's not about telling somebody that they should see the light beyond the darkness. It's about living that with that emunah and that bitachon ourselves, being able to know that even in the hardest place, we have the ability to create a brighter future. We're the ones who circle the man under the chuppah because we're the ones who represent this ability of knowing that there is, Rosh Chodesh is ours because Chadash, his Chadshus is our birthright as women, as Jewish women, this ability to create a future, something from nothing. This is why the
Beautiful.
Hey in the Isha, the letter Hey from Hashem's name is the letter that we have. The Isha has the Hey because the Hey is the Hey Nivra Ha'olam. The whole world comes into being through this newness, this breath.
I see. And you know, it's amazing
power.
to me. Thank you. And you know, this optimism that tomorrow will be better. I think my parents are Israeli, and I think that the way the Israeli people, they've been through so much, you know, how many wars have my parents lived through growing up, but their attitude is always like, you know, yeh tov, it's gonna be good. And that's how they survive and thrive. Baruch Hashem.
Right.
Thank you so much, Rachi. You know, your words of wisdom and encouragement, especially for women, what we need to do, the challah, the mikvah, and the machar, the hope for a better tomorrow, will lift everyone around us and rise.
Right.
Thank you, Rachi.
Amen.
And there are good questions in the chat box. And Mitzvah Hashem, after Esther, we will get to Mitzvah Hashem some of the questions tonight, and some we're going to tell you how you can email us, how you can reach our panelists. They're all online. You can find them, and Mitzvah Hashem will get you some answers. Esther Zirkin, your book is just wow. First of all, I want to welcome all your friends who I love in the Sheikh Chabad of Toronto because of your book. I love them all. They're so incredible. You introduced us to them. And thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Chani Sarabransky, for organizing it. You dedicate your book, A Daughter, Where's the Daughter I Raised? What a controversial title. What a great title. I just had to read the book to find out what you're talking about. Where's the Daughter I Raised? You dedicated to Mommy, right? That's how you say it in England, to Mommy, Aleh Shalom. And you describe Mommy like this. And I love Mommy too. So, and everybody. So here's how you describe her. She had a ridiculously large heart. She was always laughing. She had fierce emunah that everything's from Hashem. She didn't have an easy life, but she she taught you that nothing happens without reason, either for your own personal redemption or for the global redemption. And Hashem doesn't give us what we can't handle. Now, wow, what a mom. And as you tell your story of surviving cancer 3 times, only to lose your miracle baby, Baruch Menachem Mendel, to chickenpox afterwards. It's just incredible that you're standing here today, that you're here, you have a smile on your face, you're teaching again. And it's just, let's just get into it. I mean, your mother was a very big influence on your life and a very big help for you to get through all this. What can you tell us is something your mother told you when you were going through all this? Like, what was the best piece of advice that your mother gave you to deal with your challenges?
You want specifically when I was going through all of this, because there's so much that my mother gave all of us when we were growing up. There's tons of quotes that I can quote her as.
It was like a one-man show. No, specifically when you were at your lowest.
Okay.
What did your mother come up with that, really got you off the deep end, from jumping off the deep end?
So it was a slow process, because when I began with the first diagnosis of Vienna Machla, I didn't actually want to tell her. If you read the book, I didn't want her to know, because I was very protective of my mother, and I thought that it would be a really hard thing for her to hear. But of course that didn't work.
Because you told her you went to an oncologist. You thought she wouldn't know what the word means. Yeah, okay.
Because she had probably been protecting us, so I thought that she didn't know that word. Anyway, I was young and naive, and so I get it slipped out, and there was mostly, I think that when I was working on my internal battles, my struggles with accepting this portion of my life, which certainly did not fit my script at all. And then the idea of being the center of a lot of attention for this kind of thing certainly was a very, very uncomfortable thing to have to live through, to have everybody daven for you, and to have everybody, rally around you. And yeah, I didn't see myself as this nebuch, who wants to see themselves as that person? So I would cry to my mother, and she would say, Esther, people mean well. That's what she always said. People mean well, and you'll get through this. She also said, you have stuff. Everybody has stuff in their lives, and you have to be strong, and you have to overcome, and you will. You and your husband together, you and your husband, you will get through this.
And you mentioned something
thing that she said
on her way out, right?
Yes.
And the taxi is waiting outside.
Yes.
She's going home from the Shiva.
Yes.
And she says, I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
What was that about?
My mother and I had this thing that we never say goodbye to each other. It's always see ya. I'll see you. I'll talk to you. Okay, I'll speak to you tomorrow, because if she's going on the plane, she'll speak to me tomorrow, right? So that we never said the word goodbye. And then all of a sudden, my mother calls me out of the Shiva. I knew that she was leaving, and I thought, she's going to say goodbye. We never say goodbye. And she pulled me into the dining room that was empty, and she closed those French doors, and she said to me, Esther, and the interesting thing is that, and I wrote this in the book, that she's actually shorter than me. I'm 3 inches taller than her, but in this scene, she is up there, like she's
towering.
She's just towering over me. And she said to me, Esther, I know that what I'm going to tell you might sound like I'm not feeling for you, and I'm not understanding your pain. And you know that I understand your pain, Esther. Your pain, the pain of the loss of a child, is the greatest pain that anybody could experience. But she said, look around you, Esther. Go back into that room. When you go back into that room, you look around you. Every single person in that room is suffering from something. Every single person is in pain. And if you get too swallowed up by your own pain, you will not be able to heal. You need to be able to see the pain for others. You need to be able to be there for others. You need to be able to move out of yours. Now, you might not be able to do that now, but in time, that should be your goal. And then she gave me
Why?
a hug.
Why is being able to see the pain of others the way to heal? I'm just curious.
She was concerned, and
And you know
so.
that I know about this a little bit. Unfortunately, I know about, but yeah, why is that the key to healing? Like getting out of your self-pity, I guess? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. So I think because I can only, when I decided to write this book, I decided to be two things for myself. But one, I needed to be completely honest. And number two, I needed to do it as well as I possibly could, right? So in the writing is the process that I had to go through. And I described that process. And it took time. So when you are only focused on your staggering agony and you cannot see another person, that is a very unhealthy place. And you are allowed to be there for X amount of time, but not longer. So my mother was concerned that I would stay in that place, that I would not be able to move out. And the way to move out is to recognize that not that everybody's suffering the same, but everybody is suffering, that everybody is in pain, and that we are all struggling with something. And if I'm so self-absorbed to only think that it's me, that she shuddered at that. She was really concerned that I wouldn't be able to heal, because the road to healing was to the reaching out. The road to, we need each other. We need each other.
Right.
Nobody is an island. That's another thing she would say when we were growing up. She would say, nobody is an island. We all affect each other and we all need each other. We're all codependent. Well, I don't know if that's the word, codependent.
Right.
I got the word.
Interdependent on each other. Esther, I can tell you from my own experience that I know that that's true, that once you start giving, you start healing, because when I also suffered the loss of a child, and again, I was just in bed and I just couldn't even imagine facing the day. But a friend of mine in Miami, she started a resource room for my son. And she said, come to the resource room, come see it, and I couldn't. But when I finally pushed myself after having a good conversation with a good friend, and I felt a little bit better, I schlepped myself to that resource room. And that's when I started healing, when I started giving to kids. And I felt like almost like bringing the neshama back, you know what I'm saying? Because you're doing something for him, you're bringing light. And Esther, something else I'm just remembering now, your mother lost a child as well, your brother Maishi. And the Rebbe wrote her a letter dated Gimel Tammuz.
Yeah.
The date of that letter.
No. The Rebbe wrote that my mother had not, she wasn't aware at the time, but my mother had written the letter that she had written to the Rebbe was on Gimel Tammuz. And the Rebbe replied and made her aware of it in a postscript.
Got it.
And he wrote that the day of Gimel Tammuz is the day of the beginning of redemption for all.
And she should herself experience redemption and move on, be able to move on. Beautiful. Right. The quote that we used for you when we were organizing is something that stuck out. When I was reading the book, you said, of all human emotions, shame is worn the worst. And you have this big thing against shame, because awakening with shame and how destructive it is. Right. So can you explain to us a little bit about that, about what you were ashamed of and how you got out of that?
Sure, I'm happy to explain. I think it's so essential for anybody who's going through anything, because we tend to, and I don't know if it's our culture or it's our nature, it's nature, nurture, I'm not quite sure, but we tend to consider that if we are going through a painful experience or a kind of an illness or some kind of suffering, it's because, we are essentially flawed and that we need we need to be embarrassed of what we're going through. And I definitely was there in the beginning.
You were keeping it a secret. You were keeping it a secret. You were keeping the whole thing a secret.
In the beginning, the
26
first bout. What?
At age 26, when you were diagnosed for the first time, you wanted to keep it a secret. Oh, this is what I wanted to say.
Right.
And when you told your husband that you're like, he has to promise you that this is going to be just between you and him, and you said he thought that this was a very bad idea.
Yes.
And
yes.
Why? Why did you feel this was so wrong? Yeah.
First of all, my husband is infinitely healthier than I am and infinitely more mature. And always has been. So I always say like this, I have this joke that, I don't really have to work on my emunah because, my husband has enough for both of us. Of course, then I have enough anxiety for the two of us. So my husband was completely comfortable with this idea that we were going through something. And I was not comfortable, and I certainly didn't want it going out. Also, we had just moved to Toronto. We were just sent on shlichus to Toronto, and I did not know anybody. So, here comes this stranger, and all of a sudden her hands are out. It didn't sit well with me. But when I realized that really this whole concept of not wanting to share it with the world was really coming from a bad place, I recognized that it was my insecurities, my demons, if you will, and this notion, this completely incorrect notion to consider that suffering or difficulties is an advertisement of your flawedness, right? That there's something wrong with you, which is what I at that time thought it was. And the other thing was that as time went on, in the first time that I was diagnosed, I knew people knew about it. I knew everybody knew. So what was I gaining by trying to keep it a secret when it came back the second time? That's when I had my tantrum in the bathroom, if you've read the book.
Yes.
So that tantrum in the bathroom was what I needed. That rage that was inside me was that I needed to get that out, to come to the realization that this is happening again. I'm going to have Yana Machla again. I'm going to have to fight again. But there is one thing I'm doing oh so differently. I am not keeping this a secret. It wasn't a secret the first time. So what happened the first time? That I told anybody that knew that they weren't allowed to tell anybody. And basically it was everybody knew, but nobody was allowed to talk about it. The discomfort, the level of awkwardness because of that stipulation that I didn't want anyone talking about it, but everybody knew anyway, that was an additional suffering that I self-imposed, and it was unnecessary. So by the time the second one came around, I was 28 when it first was diagnosed the second time. So I was 26 when it first, and we fought it, and we thought we won. The second time I was 28, and I said to my husband, we're blowing the story right open because I am not going to do that unhealthy again. And I tell you one thing, I wanted to also explain about the shame, because I feel, okay, you go ahead. What was your question? I think
so I'm wondering, because are you saying that if a person is ashamed to talk about something they're going through, in a way they're also almost like trying to deny it in a way? It's like they don't have to face it.
Yes, 100%.
They're not accepting 100%. It.
And that is a very unwholesome way of going through pain, because in my opinion, because I can only go from my opinion. So if you are the person that is going through something and you want to not talk about it to anybody, and I'm not saying that there's no place for that. There are people that this is the path they choose, and I have complete respect for it. I'm just saying that in my journey, I went through this 3 times. And the first time I did it one way and it didn't work. It didn't work for me on so many levels. So I chose a different way the second time, and it worked so much better. So I encourage people to choose my second way, which is to be open about it, to talk about it. Because also there was this idea that if I wasn't talking about it, I could deny that it was happening. And denial is so dangerous, because it can play such a terrible role in your psyche and in your relationships and in your everyday, because it's there. And if you don't know how to make friends with it, and I speak about making friends with it, because you need to embrace it. You need it, because without that embracing, without that friendship that you have to cultivate with whatever it is that you're struggling, if you're denying this thing that you're struggling with, it has the ability to overcome you, and you cannot, you're trapped by it unconsciously, and there's no redemption in that. But when you open about it, then you just, it's like, it's there, and we're talking about it. We can even joke, we can even make a joke about it. How wonderful is that?
So Esther, so besides the fact that you got it off your chest and it's not awkward, not a secret, how did the Toronto community react when you let them in the second time? You invited them into your journey. I mean, you go ahead, tell us.
Oh my goodness, my community. Oh, they were.
Your mom even said, your mother even said, like, never leave here, right?
Yeah. No, the community just rallied around in the most dignified way. They always just making sure that everything was, my carpools were taken care of. If I wanted to, my shetels would have been taken care of. I didn't want to because I'm proud, but I could have. They swooped in. They literally swooped in. So Rabbi Shachat told us that this was when the second time that it was diagnosed, it was like, is it or isn't it? I kind of knew it was, but you know, there was this one-off chance that it wasn't, and there was a Shabbos that we went through. So Rabbi Shachat told us to make a kiddush, mach a kiddush, because from a kiddush and a farbrengen, that everything can change. So we decided, okay, we put out the word that we're going to make a kiddush, and I started cooking and I started baking, you know, getting busy in the kitchen. And we're going to make a kiddush in our house. And the doorbell did not stop ringing that Friday. It just didn't stop ringing. And my kids, they were like, this is Purim. I'm like, what's going? They were young, right? So this is like amazing, what's happening. And I knew what was really happening. So, you know, they were that I was being diagnosed. This was the time that I was being diagnosed. I didn't want to tell them, obviously, but the community just, and then they came and they joined. The whole Shabbos was like this one long farbrengen. And then just people came in, like Sarah Forer. I discussed Sarah Forer, how she just, you know, showed up like the night before. She called up, I'm taking you. I didn't even know her. Now I mean we're
taking you where? Yeah. She's taking you where? Taking you where?
To my appointments and my chemo treatments. She was she was a fixture. She was a permanent.
But you know, Esther, you know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like when you let them help you, you were giving them a chance. You were taking, but you were giving them that chance to love you, to help you, to do something with their anxiety for you. So it's, you know, it's giving and taking.
So there's a few things. So first of all, yes, I was giving everybody an opportunity to do a mitzvah. And that is so powerful, because I was in this unique opportunity. Not that I wanted it, not that anybody wants it. We don't. But because I was there, so, you know, I was open to it. And the other thing was very, very important for my own growth, was to allow myself to be in that position of need. Because none of us like to be in the position of need. We always want to be in the position of giving, right? But because it just makes us feel good. But I needed to know, to stop that mishigas of mine, that to pretend that I wasn't in this position of need. I needed to be living, present, full, 100% open to this new part of me, that I am in a position of need, because I needed to know myself in that position and not to be afraid of that position. Because if this is the position that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given me, then I need to embrace it. Wow. So there was two things. The one thing was, you know, the ability to give to the community this opportunity to help me. And the other thing was for my own growth, that I needed to know me in all different areas, because I'm a teacher, so I'm always giving, right? And my husband is a Rav of a shul, I'm always giving. And I love giving, we all love giving, right? But I was, for those 4 years, I was in a position of such great need, and I hated it, but I needed to live it, and I needed to
Accept
embrace
it.
it, and I needed to accept it, and I needed to not just accept it, but to really live 100% consciously in this position, because this is what Hashem wants from me. This was my shlichus, to be in the area of need.
Now, Esther,
Hard.
is this right? So is this what you mean when you say you can have pain, but it doesn't have to be suffering?
Right.
That means the suffering, like you added on yourself, that it was a secret, nobody could help you. Is that what you mean by suffering unnecessarily?
100%. And it's not just in this. I find this in all of, it's not just in this story of Where is the Daughter I Raised, but in all of my life, right? So there are different parts of, obviously, there are things that we go through. We go through stuff, right? We're human, we go through stuff, and everybody has their peckle. But I have this lovely formula that a friend of mine gave me, and I love it. It goes like this: pain plus resistance equals suffering. So pain is inevitable. We all have pain. Everybody, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not put us in this world to taste every flavor of ice cream. Hashem did not put us in this world just to party. So we're going to have pain, and we're going to have to struggle 100%, and it's for our growth. But if we resist it, and if we deny it, then we are causing suffering. So pain, as I think that the 12-step program says this, pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. By resisting the pain, you are, when we give birth, right? The Lamaze teacher goes,
Right.
into the pain. So, don't resist the pain, because when you resist it, when you fight the pain, then you are causing suffering. And I'm not going to say that I didn't cause myself suffering. I did.
Right.
I'm not going to say that I went through this whole saga perfect, great A's, she got all A's. Not at all. But I definitely learned.
Esther, it reminded me of something I read from the Frierdiker Rebbe about his incarceration. It went like this. The Frierdiker Rebbe said he went into jail, and now he's, in a terrible, dangerous position. He can't teach. He can't do what he's meant to do in his life. And he said, Hashem, I accept your will, that today you decreed that I should be in this prison. But I'm davening that tomorrow's will, it will change, and I'll be out of here. And it's almost like he's giving us this formula, teaching us when something not good happens, you have to be able to receive it before you reject it. Like, first, don't deny it, take what you're given, accept it, and then say, Hashem, daven. Maybe that's what Hashem wants. I think I heard this from Majeski. Hashem gives us struggles, so we should daven to him to take them away. But first, 100%. I guess first we have to take them before we upgrade to something better.
Okay. So sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, because these things keep popping up.
And I'll say one more thing while you think about that. When you're saying that you let in your friends to help you, right? Somebody commented here, and I didn't see all the comments, but somebody commented, what if you don't want to share your personal story? What if you're a private person, And I just want to comment on that when I lost my second child, it was back to back within the year, a little bit over a year. The second time it was, 2 traumas in a row. All psychologists will tell you it's very, very hard to come out of. And I remember writing letters to the Rebbe and telling him, help, I'm stuck in this place. The whole world is moving ahead of me. And here I am in this very dark place, and I'm all alone. I remember this acute feeling of aloneness because I felt nobody could understand me. How could I have a real friend if nobody is going through what I'm going through? And every time almost I would open the Igros, the Rebbe would say the same 2 things. First, he'd say, go to Sheikh Chabad events, I guess just to get me out, should see people and learn. But then the Rebbe said something interesting. Speak to other women in similar situations. And every time I would close it and then open it up again the next day and again. And I said to myself, I don't know anybody. Why is the Rebbe telling me, speak to other women in similar situations? Like, it sounded like the Rebbe was saying, like, find a support group. And I'm like, I don't know anybody in Crown Heights that had this issue. And then I said, wait a second, I actually do know somebody. And she lost her son in the bungalow. It was also a drowning. And I called her up and I said, look, the Rebbe is saying I should speak to women. What do you think? And she's like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. We need to, and on that conversation, we got together 10 women's names. We called them up and say, can we have a support group once a month? I'll tell you, it was the catalyst for me getting, to my personal redemption, getting out of that hole, because you see people just like you and they're smiling and they've made it and there's hope and you could be yourself. So I just want to put it out there that, anyone who's going through anything, speak to other women in similar situations and go to Neshe events and JWE events. Oh, wow. Esther, there's another question here for you. Last thing I wanted to ask you is, you said that it was critical for you to make the proper soul choices, right? Quote unquote, soul choices. Can you tell us a few of the right kind of choices to make when you're in this very hard place? What should be going through your head?
Okay, so that's a great question. They're all great questions, and I love the phrase soul choice, because when you're making a soul choice, because I firmly believe that we can, build big buildings and highways and everything, and we can climb Mount Everest, or we can swim the Atlantic, but the greatest work that we could ever do actually happens right inside us. And that work that we do that happens inside us, there's no trumpets, there's no accolades. Nobody knows that you've done this, right? Nobody knows that you have made what I call a soul choice. So the first time that happened was when it first blew open the story, because it was the second time that I was diagnosed. And everybody, I described this in the book, that everybody was just incredible, and I knew that they were all davening for me, and they were all, sending over food parcels and stuff for Yom Tov. It was Rosh Hashanah, and I was standing outside the shul on Rosh Hashanah, and we had only been sent. We were sent to Toronto 3 years earlier, so it was only 3 years in to this community. So I didn't know everybody. Toronto is a big community, and it's only bigger now. So I didn't know everybody, but I was standing outside shul waiting for my husband to come out. And every single woman that came out of the shul came over to me to wish me a Shana Tova on the sukkah, and to have a refuah shalema, and just really like the attention was unbelievable. It was really incredible, one after the other. And I stood there on the sidewalk, and inside of me there was a battle. There was a battle going on, because I was resenting it. I was hating the attention, because I felt that it was because I wasn't, quote unquote, normal, that I had left the path of normal, and everybody wants to be on that path. And so did I. Right. And I had left the path of normal, and and inside me, I was looking for something that I could hold onto that is going to stop me from sinking further and further into myself. And all of a sudden, I remembered actually a teacher of mine. You see, teachers, they have an impact for life, right? A teacher of mine, Dr. Lowenthal, in high school, and he was telling us that about the concept. He was talking to us about the concept of Bechira Chafshis, and how there's so many variables in your life that are completely not in your control. When you're born, and the time of history that you're born, the socioeconomic status that you're born into, the fact that you're a boy or a girl, you've got a color eyes, or your ability to do math. It's not in your control. But what is in your control is your thoughts, and how you are going to train them. And don't think that tiny little bit of control is a nothing, because it has the power to transform everything. So I'm standing there on the sidewalk, and I thought to myself, okay, this is it. Stop the mantra. Stop those ugly thoughts. Just stop. Now, look at each woman as she comes over to you. Look into her eyes. She cares. And it's so sincere. So enjoy that. Enjoy the fact that she cares. Enjoy the fact that she cares so much that she's going to approach you even as you are, as unsmiling as you are. As you are standing here looking miserable, she's still coming over. Isn't that brave? Isn't that beautiful? She doesn't even know you. Why is she coming over to you? Because she cares. So all of a sudden I started to smile and thank people and wish them a Shana Tova and give them the brachas while they were giving to me the brachas. I was giving them the brachas. And something changed inside me. And that's when I realized that I have power. There in that little, on that little sidewalk in the gray sky of Toronto on September day, I realized that I had power. And it wasn't met with a clap, and it didn't have any kudos, and I wasn't thumbs up. Nobody was giving me anything, but I was giving it to me. I was giving it to me. And
What power? What power did you have?
So that was my first soul choice. As we move on in the book, you will see that I made other soul choices that came up. But that was the first time that I, as Sternos would say, I tackled something and then I seized my power and it changed me. I wasn't, transformed, but I knew that I could. It was a path that I could actually take, that I wasn't a victim of my circumstances, that I had some control over my circumstances because I could control my attitude.
Excellent. And Esther, I think that this is a recurring theme, and I think that we might have to end with this because we're already towards the end of our program. But I think this is a beautiful recurring theme in your book, which really inspired me, is because you always looked back at what your teachers taught you and what your mother told you and what your husband was telling you. You got guidance. And I know, we had a wonderful teacher in seminary. I always love to bring her up because you could talk about her all day, Rebbetzin Heller, Alaa Shalom. And everybody revered her, really. We loved her, we respected her. And the last class, she had Yena Machla, unfortunately. At age 42, she passed away in our second year of seminary, my second year of seminary. And the last class, what she told us? She said, girls, I sat down with my husband. We made an appointment because he's a very busy man. And I told him, what's your message for the women? What can I tell the women as a message for them? What would you like to tell them? He was a Rav of the Basin of Crown Heights. Very, very chashuv a man, Tzaddik, a Rav. And he said, the women really are Kenai Nahara wonderful. From the questions they ask, you could tell that you're Shemayim, really wonderful. I have nothing to add. I just want to say to them, sometimes a woman doesn't ask a question because she's embarrassed. She thinks it's probably not a good question. Probably everybody knows the answer but me. So I'm not going to call the Rav and I'll stay in doubt. And it's a problem, then it just causes more and more doubts and problems. So he said, tell the women, if they have a question, it's a good question. As long as you don't know the answer, it's a good question. And you have the right to ask your questions. And I feel that you always, Baruch Hashem, tapped into, mentors and teachers. And I want to say that that's one of the things that we do at Jewish Women Influencers. Baruch Hashem, we created a webpage, liveandlearn.crownheights.com. It's a webpage, and you can look on a Mashpia database. There's 25 women over there who are ready to become your potential Mashpia, your mentor. And there's a little bio, and you can call any one of them. They're all kind, confidential, wonderful. I know them we know them personally. And there's the website. You can download it, you can save it. Anything you have a question with, these women are happy to guide you in. 5 of them are Kala teachers. So if you have any questions in Tarsa Mishpacha, in Mikvah, in in marital harmony, there's so many wonderful women on there who are just beautiful souls, and they're ready to help. And their phone numbers are there. So that's number one. I also want to say that you could join our WhatsApp group, Jewish Women Influencers. You can go on, if you have Instagram, you can go on Instagram. You can see all our panels. You can see also the panel on that webpage that I just mentioned, liveandlearn.crownheights.com. And you can email us for any questions. If you want us to make another Zoom with any of these panelists, that means if you have more questions for the panelists, we can create another Zoom. You can email us. The Jewish Women Influencer at gmail.com. And I think with this, we're going to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for our dear panelists again for giving up your time and energy. Yes.
Hi. Can I just say,
yes.
Can can I add one point over here?
Please do, please
Okay,
do.
so I just wanted to wrap up and say on a personal note, huge thanks to you, Zohar. You did an incredible job. And I want to say that the three of us, the one thing that we were presented as having in common is having written books. We were presented as authors. And really, in preparing for this, we realized that we have much more in common. And I believe that every single woman on this group gathering here tonight has that same thing in common, and that is our belief in Geula, our belief and commitment to Geula. And Geula is a time when Hashem's presence will be known and wanted and appreciated and valued in the world, because Hashem is the only power, and yet the Gullus is Hashem's hiddenness. And personal redemption is that same idea on a personal level, where each of us have this powerful soul, like that can be activated the way Rachi described in the beautiful mitzvahs of the Jewish woman Chala and Taras HaMishpacha, and activated in the beautiful way that Esther described in the soul choices that we make, and letting that part of us show up and redirecting our thoughts and showing up with that beautiful choices, with the light of our soul shining through. And each of us has that power to take our soul from the place of its hiddenness, from the obscurity of Gullus, from the locked, stuck place of the layers of all the stuff that we have carrying around, the challenges that we face, and we could defy the Gullus. We can walk away from it. We can embrace the power of our soul, the awesomeness of our soul through the mitzvahs that we do, like Rachi said, through the choices, the personal choices that we make every day, like Esther said, and through showing up every minute. And I want to just encourage everyone to to make tonight, because it is a holiday of redemption, it's a time that we have this power to commit to personal geula, to personal redemption. So let's do it. Let's commit to making those soul choices.
Thank you.
The letting our neshama show up, releasing it, unleashing the power that we have, that awesome light that's flowing within us, and to keep learning and to keep growing. And thank you all for being part of this beautiful sisterhood.
Thank you.
That's
Shani.
right.
Actually, the perfect summation. That was beautiful. Thank you for doing that. And
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. That was really special.
Thank you so much again to our panelists, Sterni, Rachi,
Zohar, for the
and Esther.
powerful person that you are, bringing this together and making it happen.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll
Thank you.
just- Ayesha
Thank you,
Kayach
everyone.
to you, Zohar. Ayesha Kayach. This has been great.
My greatest pleasure. Thank you for coming on our mission for Jewish women influencers, and thank you to our audience for joining us tonight. It was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Nice.
Have a good night. Have a good night. Good night.